If I say Buddha, today most people think of Gautama the Buddha. Gautama was not the only Buddha. There were many before him, many at that time and many more after him. Buddha is not his name. His name was Gautama Siddhartha. He became a Buddha. The word Bu means Buddhai or the intellect. One who is above his intellect is a Buddha. There is probably no one in the world who has not heard of Gautama's name. Though there have been many Buddhas, his name has lived on. He has been one of the greatest spiritual waves and probably the most successful spiritual teacher on the planet. In his own lifetime, he had 40,000 monks, and this army of monks went out to bring a spiritual wave. He did not do anything very new as such, but he offered spirituality to the society in the way that it works. Till then, spiritual process was offered only in Sanskrit language in that part of the world, and Sanskrit was available only to a certain community of people. Others were barred from learning it because this language was seen as the key to the divine. For the first time, Gautama spoke in Pali, which was the common language of the day. He opened up the floodgates of spirituality for all kinds of people. Gautama was a prince of a small princely state. When he was born, some yogi predicted that he will either become a great emperor or a great sage. When he made this prediction, Gautama's father got a little excited. He did not want him to become a great sage. He wanted him to become a great emperor. He thought that by being exposed to some suffering or misery, he may turn into a sage. So he kept him in utter pleasure, the best of food, clothes, and pleasures. When he was 19 years of age, his father got him married to a very pretty young woman, kept him in a palace which was secluded from the rest of the society, where he lived in pleasure and was never exposed to any kind of suffering. One day, Gautama thought that he will just take a drive through the town, so he asked his charioteer to take him across. As he was going, he saw a man who was old. He had never seen an old man in his life. His father had protected him from all this. He said, "What happened to him?" The charioteer said, "Oh, he is just an old man." "How does it happen?" he asked. He said, "Everyone gets old someday." He looked at himself. He was a nice youth. "What, me also?" he said. "Yes, everyone gets old. If they live long enough, they get old." This was a realization for him that I will become like this. Then he saw a man lying on the street who was ill with something, not able to get up and in great suffering. He said, "Stop. What is this guy? What's he doing?" He said, "Oh, he is sick, unfortunately." "What does that mean?" He said, "The body, sometimes it gets sick. It can happen to just anyone. Me, a prince, it can happen to me. It can happen to anyone." Then he saw, "Oh, I can become like this." He was completely disturbed by this. Then they went further and he saw a funeral. They were carrying the dead body of a man. "What happened to that guy?" "Oh, he just died, that's all." "What does that mean?" "That happens to everyone without exception." Then he said, "What am I doing? Just eating, pleasures, and nonsense. What am I doing with myself?" He went into turmoil within himself. Suddenly, being a prince and the pleasures of this palace broke apart for him. He started looking, what is the point of all this? This body is going to get old, this may get sick, and this will be dead for sure. Why am I investing my entire life in this? But by then he had an infant boy. He could not leave this loving wife and this lovely little baby. He struggled and struggled. By then, a little over 1¼ year had passed. When the little boy was 1½ years of age, he could not hold it anymore in the middle of the Buddha's path to enlightenment. These are times when different schools were established in India. At one point there were over 18 different ways of doing things, 18 different varieties of yoga. It is like how the medical science is becoming today. 25 years ago, if you wanted a medical checkup, all you needed was your family doctor. Today, there is a doctor for every part of your body. Similarly, this happened to the yogic system. People started specializing in a variety of small things. When specialization crosses a certain point, it becomes ridiculous. This happened to yoga. It crossed that point where 18 different specializations of yoga happened. That is when Patanjali came and kind of assimilated everything into Yoga Sutras to minimize this expanse that was growing endlessly. When Gautama came, it was post-Patanjali, but still there were many things. He went from school to school and he pursued 8 different forms of samadhi. He saw all of them were wonderful experiences, but it still did not liberate him. In this condition, he started walking as a samana, which is a certain system where their fundamental practice is that they will never ask for food. They do not go in pursuit of food because they want to beat the fundamental instinct of survival. Samanas used to just walk, never asking for food. But the culture was sensitive. If they saw a spiritual person walking, people would cook at home and run behind him and serve him wherever he was because they knew that he will not ask for food. If you become a samana today, you will walk yourself to death. Those days, people were sensitive to his sadhana and responded, so there were thousands of samanas walking the country. Gautama became a samana. Even if you are not asking for food, you may walk near a town so that food will come. But Gautama took it too seriously and just walked. He became just bones and a bag of skin. Then he came to a place where there was a river called Naranjana. It was just about 18 to 20 inches of water and he stepped into it. Halfway down into the river, he did not have the energy to cross. There was a dead branch and he just held on to it. He did not have the strength to take the next step, but he is not the kind of man to let go. He held on. We do not know for how long. Maybe it was 2 minutes. When you are feeling so weak, those 2 minutes might have looked like many years. Then, as he hung on, he just realized, what is it that I am striving for? What is it I am wandering the entire country for? Going from school to school, learning this, learning that, what is it that I am looking for? Then he realized, there is really nothing. This life is on. All I have to do is just take away the barriers which are not allowing me to experience. How Gautama became a Buddha. When he realized that everything is within him and there is nowhere to search, he suddenly had the energy to take the next step and the next step. He crossed the river and sat down under that now very famous Bodhi tree. It was a full moon night. He sat there with this determination. Either I must see the ultimate nature of my existence now, or I will sit here and die. I will not open my eyes till I know this. Once he made that resolve, to know what is within you can happen in a moment. When he saw that you do not have to do anything in particular for realization, he was fully enlightened, and the moon was shining. He had not eaten properly for many years. He was a samana for 4 years and he had gathered 5 disciples. These guys thought, he is real. Because he does not eat, he is really rigid. And now they saw that he is in some exuberant state and they could see the light on his face. Then they were waiting for him to open his eyes and give the teaching. He opened his eyes, looked at them, smiled and said, "Cook something, let's eat." They were totally disappointed. They thought, he has lost it. They walked with him for 4 years when he had nothing but torture. But when he got enlightened, they left him because they wanted to hear something severe. But he said, "Cook something, let's eat. We have been wasting our time."